Okay. Yeah, that worked okay. Okay. Good.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Commodore.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no
Vast
West.
right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
That was loud. Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch.
I'm your host, Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
He reads everything.
Hello there, you lucky devils. You better bet your bippies he reads everything. Am I late enough? Oh, hi, Walter. How you been? Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Are you as tired as I am? It's not the heat. It's the incredible fucking humidity right now. It's so humid, raindrops will form right in front of your eye. Oh my God. It's like pudding, and it's not moving. It's like going through a swimming pool of pudding. Oh. Is he late or just in another time zone? Well, a little from column A and a little from column B. I need to catch up a little bit. I don't know anything about Trump. Now I have to learn about Kamala. Also, somebody left a really stupid comment that I need to respond to. Give me 1 second. I forgot. I need to ban this person. Here it is. Go to comments. Okay, the title of yesterday's pregame live stream was "Every Single Thing the Professor was a..." Right, I was talking about the Trump assassination, what's going on now. Here's a jackass comment. Professor, if Allen was framed, how did those bombs get under his house? Now, this is not only incredibly off topic, so I'm going to answer, right? Let me reply to this. Reply. Number one, way off topic of this video. This video. 2, I don't answer questions. I don't answer questions that prove you haven't read the book, that prove you haven't even read the book. Read my book. 3, the answer to all your questions just sit back, relax, and let it happen. And I'll be with you in a minute. Answer to all your questions is in my book. 4. Whether Allen ever built any pipe bombs or not, how would pipe bombs he made he may or may not have made in the 1990s prove he was the Zodiac in the 1960s? How? Or here's how you write a question. Whether Allen ever built any pipe bombs or not, how would pipe bombs he may or may not have made in the 1990s, how would they prove how does that prove he's the Zodiac in the 1960s? Does he have a time machine? And speaking of time machines, if you don't have one, 5. Read the book. Shit for brains. It's not even a real question, but I want to leave an answer for the general public. Okay? If Allen was framed for being Zodiac, how did those bombs get under his house? Well, they were found under his mobile home or whatever in the 90s. He supposedly built a couple of pipe bombs, but this was when he was playing games with the media saying, oh, Graysmith, because what happened was was it Dick Cheney's kid's friend? Somebody read Graysmith's book and deduced that Graysmith was probably talking about his teacher. He's like, I think I know who he's talking about, and outed him on the internet when the internet first came along. So Allen got involved in this, and Allen was somebody who liked attention. He was a passive aggressive child molester, multiple convictions, and yeah, he probably did behave inappropriately with Donald Cheney's kid. I believe that, but that doesn't make him a murderer, let alone the Zodiac killer. Now, I don't think Mullinax was necessarily in a conspiracy when he accused Allen. He just read in the newspapers that some pop psychologist that you see pop up in these tabloid stories, he said that the author of the Zodiac letters was a repressed latent homosexual and probable child molester. It's a very interesting thing to say about the guy who actually wrote the letters, Hal Snook. But that doesn't, but the Zodiac is a fictional character. And in fact, as I show you in my book, that character was created to fit a very detailed and very descriptive role that the tabloid media wanted someone to play. And those letters create that character. Those letters are intended to become a nationwide media sensation, because the tabloid media was desperately looking for that type of psycho killer. Because every time they caught a psycho killer, there was some pathetic loner. And it would just kill the story. It would kill the story. But if you had a psycho killer who did not fall back on psychobabble excuses, who knew what he was doing, was conscious of what he was doing, took full responsibility, belonged to some satanic cult, and bragged about what he did, but never got caught, then you could sell 1 million newspapers forever. And that's exactly what the fictional character, the Zodiac Killer, does in his letters. But Mullinax read that and said, that sounds like, and then he's thinking about these descriptions, and he said, you know what? Arthur Lee Allen kind of fits that a little bit. Because Mullinax had busted Allen for molesting kids at a school where Allen worked, and his mom bought his way out of it, paid off the parents. And Mullinax did not let that go. So it was easy for Dick Cheney, Don Cheney, well, take your pick. Harry, Dick, Don, whatever. Cheney, old buddy of Unsavory Avery. It was very easy for him to approach Mullinax and say, hey, we think that he's, and so do his family, which is all a lie. They sued Graysmith and Graysmith's publisher, St. Martin's Press, and they had to settle out of court because they said, we never, ever, ever said that we thought, and we don't think that we know Arthur is a pedophile. We do not have any suspicions that he is the Zodiac. And you know what? He plays those games. He probably has dropped hints that he is because he likes attention. We understand that. But we have never, ever thought that he was the Zodiac. Now, that doesn't prove he's not the Zodiac. But it proves that Graysmith's book is a complete and total fraud, as you will see in my book. It's 3 books in one. Number 1, The Myth of the Zodiac Killer. Created by the author of the letters and perpetuated by Robert Graysmith. 2, the character of the Zodiac Killer, this fictional character, is not something somebody just made up off the top of their head. This is somebody who studies the media and who knows what the San Francisco Chronicle needs. They need this diabolical serial killer who takes full responsibility for his crimes, doesn't claim he doesn't remember, brags about it. He's pure evil. He's so clever he'll never get caught. And he's a pen pal with the San Francisco Chronicle. It's a can't fail. And the other newspapers have to give free publicity to the Chronicle, what becomes a Chronicle exclusive. This did not happen by accident. The movie The Boston Strangler was breaking all box office records when the first Zodiac letter was mailed. The Boston Strangler is a fictional character based on multiple murderers. Multiple copycats. And that includes, what's his name? And by the way, that movie's pure fiction. Read the book, The Boston Strangler. But the last chapter where they frame, and he participates, he's just an attention seeker. He thought he could sell this story and provide for his family. He was a rapist. A violent rapist, a violent serial rapist. But he confessed to being, and he actually probably went out and attacked that woman to frame himself for being the Boston Strangler. But up until that chapter, which looks like it was written by a different author, believe me, it's a great book. It's a great book. It's better than Ink Cold Blood because it's an investigation of the crime. And it talks about this myth that police departments were not sharing information. They were sharing information, but in the movie, they blame. And what does Graysmith do? Oh, it's a lack of police department cooperation. If anything, there was too much cooperation. That's how Hal Snook got copies of the police reports he used to fake the Zodiac letters in the first place. The third part of the book is, okay, smart guy, what really happened then? I show you, according to the actual police reports and autopsy reports, what really happened in each crime, as far as we know, what the real evidence was and what it tells us. And how the real evidence not only proves that the letters were a hoax, but proves who wrote the letters. And then I show you that the handwriting is a perfect match. And when I say bona fide exemplars, they come from police department files. This guy's handwriting's a perfect match. and he knows all about the media. So the follow-up episodes, you got to read the book. I'm not going to turn the book into videos. And the documentary on Peacock that you can watch right now, that's like they take the book and they go to the next step. Now, I do everything else, all the material they did not use in the documentary. Now, if they call me and want to do a sequel, and I'm going to do YouTube videos to see if we can generate interest in a sequel. They're aware of this material. But as of now, it's been a year. We're not winning any big awards, so I can go ahead and start showing you more stuff. What you read in the book, you must understand, or nothing else will make any sense. But I'm going to start showing you. You know nothing about Zodiac. You know nothing about Graysmith. You know nothing about Fincher. You know nothing about Colonel Kurtz. You know nothing. Listen. I know you all have your pet theories about this, but you good people out there know absolutely nothing about Idi Amin. And I'm not joking. You know nothing about Idi Amin. But Idi Amin is going to tell us everything we need to know about what happened to Trump a couple of weeks ago. You'll see. But I don't have to put those on a private streaming platform. I can just do a subscriber section on my YouTube. Then suddenly now they fixed a thing where subscribers can see subscriber-only content at the top of the list. But that's going to be, I won't even do that until, so the next thing I need to tell you people is about the premium website. If you've been subscribing, pay your August bill, pay your September bill, the one that comes due in September, whatever part of September. Then what I will do is, for those people, I will cancel your auto payments manually. Make sure those are canceled and extend your subscriptions until after the website goes back to the free version where it's just a front page and there's no premium content. That'll happen around Pearl Harbor Day. So pay for August and September, and then I will extend your subscription and do the best I can, and you can watch classic episodes, and I'll make some more premium episodes until the first part of December. That'll be no charge to you. Fair enough. And then I can take a break, and you can take a break, and I'll just do YouTube and okay. And let me put the link here. See, I'm not responding to the jackass. I'm responding to the people who are reading the comment left by the jackass. And then we'll talk about Kamala and Jesus. It's very important, and I just grabbed the wrong. Oh, I kind of like that little thing that happened on my end. Links. Just copy that whole thing right there. Charles is asking the Red Cross and DNA. I've given a lot of blood to the Red Cross. Can they smuggle, if they can smuggle heroin, can they sell DNA? If you've ever handled a penny, the government has your DNA. I don't even have an American penny. I've got nothing on this table but money. Well, let's talk about Jesus and Kamala. And let's talk about money versus wealth. This is money. And I thank you for it. This is my favorite color right here. You'll notice how it brings out the red in my eyes. Right? I love this. But this is not wealth. Write this down someplace where you won't forget it, and you won't write it on the wall in permanent marker. Sit down on the toilet and write it on the wall so you can stare at it. Money is not wealth, period. Money is not wealth. I'm going to say that again in plainer English. Money is not wealth. This is money. This is not wealth. This is wealth. This is wealth. Hear that? This is wealth. You can use this bronze and you can use this silver to make something useful. Lots of different useful things. You can use this as a cheap substitute for a fuse. Burn down your own house. You can load these. You remember those guns, the Star Trek guns, had the little flying discs? Why didn't anybody come out with like a updated version of those? You know, they got the updated updated machine guns, but they got the updated water guns, right? This is wealth. This is a resource you can use to create more wealth or to accomplish some other economic goal, like hunt for food. This is wealth. It has become used as currency, which is a subclassification of money. This is money. Mwah. It is currency. It is used pretty much everywhere in the world as currency. Mwah, mwah, mwah. It is not wealth. Once you've wiped your, unless you're the kind of person who washes and recycles their toilet paper, you can use this once and you're not going to you can't make anything useful out of this. And this is not going to create any more wealth. You can have a mattress stuffed with these and have zero wealth. Do you understand? It is becoming less and less wealth every minute of every day right now. They're bragging about how the pace of inflation has slowed. It has not stopped, and it has not reversed. Prices are not coming down. They're just staying where they are. Well, the money supply is like a cesspool. It's getting a little deeper every day. This is not wealth. This does not lose its value. Its value is its value. Whatever bronze is worth now. Whatever this was worth when it was made, this is what it's worth now. As a matter of fact, this cheap yellow brass, actually, to be honest, I'm kind of impressed with the quality of the brass in this coin. This is just a brass kopeck from the Soviet Union. Exchange rate, this is about one tenth of an American penny from the same period of time. I think it was 10 rubles to the dollar, and this is 1/100th of a ruble. So about a tenth of a penny. It is now worth 4 of these, which represents 100 pennies in the mysterious triangle of Icon. This is worth 4 of these. And I think one reason is the quality of the brass from which it is made. This is recycled toilet paper, diapers, sweaty t-shirts. This is papier. It's paper made from cloth. Paper made from rags. This is toilet paper. This is toilet paper. This is toilet paper with very, very expensive sizing on it. Do you know what it costs to make one of these? The government is going broke making these. In Jesus' time, there was currency, and there's a big argument over currency and about who owns the currency. And they say, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? And Caesar says, give me a denarius. Give me a denarii, a shilling. And he says, whose picture is that on there? And the smartass says, George, King George. And Jesus says, well, give to George what is George's. And give unto God what is God's. We think this is an argument about the Romans, Herod taking money from the temple treasury to pay for the temple expansion and to pay for the aqueduct, the sewer, and all this other stuff. Did Jerusalem ever have a sewer? That kind of stuff. That's probably what he's talking about. But they had money. They had money. They had money. Money is like a very broad general term, like person or human or mentally competent. It's an idea. Money's an idea. Money's just an idea. Money is both a unit of exchange. It can be used as currency. But there are some forms of money that are not used as currency. You have a hard time using certificates of deposit to go to Starbucks and buy, right? Some places, Bitcoin for a minute was being used as currency, and that didn't seem to last very long. Nice try. People like to have a little substance behind their currency. They know these are imaginary, but they know that the numbers in the bank are purely imaginary. But if they can equate the numbers in a bank to something they do sometimes blow their nose on, then they'll think the numbers in the bank are somehow as real as this. I can guarantee you this. Thanks to the full faith and credit of the government of Uncle Sucker, and thanks to insurance premiums paid by the bank where you keep your money to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is just as stable and just as solvent as the Treasury, the numbers in your bank account are just as real as this. That much I can promise you. As a matter of fact, they're only as real as this. But they are just as real as this. Bitcoin, there's no Bitcoin. And I just don't think people are going to buy into that, to coin a phrase. But some people, there are markets, there are sub-markets out there that accept it as a currency. But I don't think, yeah. Have you ever sold a Bitcoin? A lot of people bought Bitcoins. Have you ever sold one? You saw that thing. It was a poster for a gaming competition, and first prize was Cadillac, second prize was a set of steak knives, and third prize was 25 Bitcoins. This is another form of money. This is called specie. This is a metal that has a market value apart from being money, called silver. It has a lot of uses. It's in demand, and the supply is somewhat limited. So people took to using it as a medium of exchange. 5 of these for 1 bottle of olive oil, and then 5 of these will get you 5 bushels of wheat. So if 1 bottle of olive oil trades for 5 bushels of wheat, then you can trade your bottle of olive, but you can't. I don't want to take this bottle of olive oil in this Uber through Popeyes. I'll get strangled. Strike that and reverse it. I want a bottle of olive oil, but I don't feel like packing 5 bushels of wheat on my back. What I can do is I can sell the 5 bushels of wheat for 5 of these. I can trade them for these. It's a piece of silver, and assuming it's a full ounce of silver, I can trade that for a bottle of olive oil. How do I know it's pure silver? Well, it's got this mark stamped in it. And this was invented by King Croesus of Lydia, who 5 minutes later was bought out by the Persian Empire in a hostile takeover. King Croesus did this, or his father Croesus I did this? Acquired the kingdom of Lydia, where they invented specie. This is bullion. This is a precious metal. This is specifically what is considered a precious metal. And it is a uniform weight. It is 1 ounce, and it is stamped with the monarch's seal, so that you know it's pure, and you know so everybody has confidence in it to use it as currency. Now, let's say you have an idea. If you could get your hands on 50 bottles of olive oil and a pig trough, you could, and then if you could get your hands on a couple of broads with open minds, you could create a money-making machine. You could create oil wrestling, female oil wrestling, or whatever kind of oil wrestling. You know, the Romans sold a lot of tickets to male oil wrestling. You understand this, right? You didn't go to the Coliseum to see one event. There was a program of entertainment that went on all day and all evening. In exchange, I believe, they actually gave out, I think they gave out, no, they sold tickets. They sold chits. And I think you got a one-day pass to the Coliseum. I think was it a farthing? Because I have a Roman farthing. Oh, God, I didn't lose it, did I? Here it is. I have a Roman farthing, 1/4 of a Roman penny. This is a corroded Roman penny, but it's 2,000 years old. Here's a corroded, so it's 1/4 of one of these. A Roman penny is the same. A British penny, American penny, a real penny is the same amount of bronze. It's not pure copper, it's bronze. And as you can see, bronze is actually a very durable material. So a uniform clip of this was stamped, became used as currency, not just between the high merchant class or the bureaucrat class, but became used as currency by everybody. This is used by currency by everybody. And everybody giggles and crosses their fingers. So in Jesus' time, there was money, but very few people ever saw it. These were clay tablets that had marks on them, tally marks from, instead of turning in your 5 bushels, I've explained this once before, I'm going through it again. You turn in your 5 bushels of wheat and you get a clay tablet that says 5 bushels of wheat. And then you take that and you trade it to somebody who has one for 1 bottle of olive oil. Then you take that chit and you take it and you pick up your olive oil. We do this today. There are green stamps. Are you with me? But these were traded almost exclusively among the big farmers, the big planters, and the bureaucrats who were not pencil pushers handling other people's money. They brought the money in and then they paid Pharaoh his cut. Are you with me? They had a license to do this, basically. They had a commission to do this. They're commissionaires. They are not commissioners, where they're government employees. They're private contractors. And they begin to trade this among themselves. 5 bottles of olive oil and a wooden tub and 2 broads with open minds is called wealth. If you have those things, it's wealth. If you're cooking them, that's not how you use them. If you use them the right way, you can sell tickets for one of these a piece, and money these will rain down from heaven. That's wealth. If you take your 5 pieces, take your 30 pieces of silver and start a church with it, pennies will rain down from heaven. If you take your 30 pieces of silver and you buy a couple of oxen and a plow and some land, you can make money grow out of the ground. That's called wealth. Wealth is money. Well, no. Wealth is any resource, and money can be included in that. But wealth is a resource that has the potential to generate more wealth. A set of tools, a carpenter's set of tools, a newspaper with some paper and some ink. You increase the value of the paper and the ink by putting them together according to certain patterns, which create certain emotional and psychotic reactions in the minds of certain primates on a certain planet that can't find its own ass with both hands on a flashlight. We're so smart. You can tell by our government how smart we are. What does this have to do with Kamala? What does Kamala think about money? Jesus seemed to think that God's face was on the money. Some people interpret that to mean if you're going to deal in worldly matters, you're going to pay worldly prices. If you turn away from worldly matters and deal in spiritual, what does God demand? Well, God demands purity, right? God demands purity in his money. Jesus equates, there are a couple other parables, I forgot about this. Like Jesus says about storing up, don't store up treasure on earth. Don't bury these in the backyard. Jesus told you, do not bury these in the backyard. For one thing, they're just going to rust and it doesn't matter. You take money out of circulation, all you've done is smother the economy. It's funny that Jesus tells you not to stop burying these in the backyard. Now, he makes a larger point. This is not real wealth. But my point is, money, a lot of economists and a lot of people treat money as wealth in the sense that money can give you the opportunity to buy wealth. Diamonds and gold are not wealth. Gold does have industrial uses, but you know what I mean. A Ferrari is not wealth. A fur coat is not wealth. All right. A hammer is wealth. A computer is wealth. But depending on how you use them, labor does add value to wealth. Wealth does not move on its own. But money is not automatically wealth. You can give somebody 1 million of these and they will live in a shit shack, a sheet metal shit shack. That's not, it's per se, this is not wealth. It depends on how you use it. If you use this to buy tools, if you use this to buy farmland, it can be wealth. This is wealth because it has uses besides just being a symbolic medium of exchange and a unit of measurement of value. That's not why it's wealth. It's wealth because it's silver, which has uses. Do you understand? I hope so, because I'm about to move on. Jesus seems to have a pretty solid grasp of what is wealth and what its value is. It's people working together. Maybe he's wrong about that. If people hold everything in common. I saw a video on the tubes today about a guy talking about how the pilgrims were communists and it failed. And I'm like, yeah, but they got their communism from the Bible. They got their communism from the Gospels. Christianity is the first invention of communism. The ecclesia, you put everything in and then you just take out what you need and no more, and there will be plenty for everybody. And there will be a bureau of bureaucrats who decides who gets what. We don't have to worry about, you don't need to be able to, I can't calculate 15% of my income. It's okay because we'll be taking it all. We will be taking it all. By all, I mean all. All. We'll take it. Don't worry about this because you won't have it any more. We take it all. If you want to join the church. And then in return, you get cradle to grave security. An interesting work to perform. And a free ticket to whatever. What was it, heaven? Yeah, you'll get a free ticket there. Well, maybe. You can't go back. And you don't get to take your money back out. It's a one-way ticket. Heaven's Gate is a one-way ticket. You do understand this. Jesus invented rock soup, which is a communist metaphor. Everybody puts in whatever little they have. There's plenty for everyone. Jesus's physics are a little, but his politics are very pink. They're bright red. The politics of Jesus are bright red. But I'm also arguing there's a lot of putting words in his mouth that as time goes on. And very specifically, what I'm talking about is, and I'm going to mention this briefly one more time and make a point, and I move on to Kamala because I think this is important. What you call Christianity actually began as a Gnostic cult. And it's later on when Constantine and his successors try to cram it all into one state church that the Sadducees, the Hellenized Jews who were already quasi-Christian to begin with, but they just don't have Jesus up on a cross as their Messiah, Gnostics come along and say, the Messiah came. Good news, the Messiah came before the temple was destroyed. And his name was Jesus, and he was from Nazareth. And what happens is, I think these Sadducees catch on to the perversions of the Gnostics, and they actually launch a kind of an internal coup. I think it's the Trinitarians. I'm lumping them all under Trinitarians because Gnostics believe man became God, and therefore any man can become God. And a lot of them think they are becoming God. A lot of them have been told that they're becoming God. A lot of them have been promised that they're becoming God. Trinitarians, what my distinction that I'm making, and please bear with me, is that they say no. Jesus was not born a man who became God. Christ pre-existed the creation of the earth. It's this idea of man can become God versus no, we are all equally inferior to God and you will not become God. We're trying to become more God-like and what God wants. That's what Jesus is doing, setting the example. He was not a man who became God. He was already God. To explain all this, you need Trinitarianism. Now, I'm just going to tell you a fact, and we're going to move on. It's very easy to defend, and after they have this internal struggle, and supposedly, the Trinitarians basically think they have won, and that they have driven out the Gnostics by 350 AD to 400. Well, one more time, they have a purge of the Arians. But then the Arians, the Goths, take over the whole Roman Empire for a few years. And they're all Arian. They're basically Gnostics. They believe Jesus was a man who became God. Not Arian in anthropological terms, Arian, the heresy of Arius. And I'm telling you, it actually started, the Christians were Gnostics first. And when there's this hostile takeover trying to merge the Sadducees with the Christians, Sadducees are horrified by the Gnosticism of the Christians and try to reform it and try to reform the ecclesia. They were only partially successful, but apparently the Gnostics did have to go underground. They did not stamp out the Gnostics, but the Gnostics went underground. But they still got the big editing party, the big poetry slam at the Council of Nicaea. They still slipped in. It's way easier to justify Gnosticism from the official Gospels. Way easier to justify Gnosticism from that than it is to justify Trinitarianism from the Gospels. From the canonical Gospels, it's almost impossible to justify Trinitarianism. Sorry. And when I talk about untangling the threads, all the different layers that get cut and pasted and scrambled together into these Gospels, when you put them in roughly chronological order in terms of when they got added to the manuscript, the Gnosticism, I'm telling you, there are bits and pieces like Mark the publican took some notes about some legal decisions issued by this cat named Jesus about, like I told you, a publican can enter the kingdom of heaven, blah, blah, blah. He saves those. But this the core idea, let me back up one step. I confused myself. When they first start to glue them together into one big narrative, the whole crucifixion story is pure, unadulterated Gnosticism. Its only purpose in there is a man became God through a bloody sacrifice. That is the only reason it's in there. There is no other purpose of the crucifixion story except Gnosticism. But they cram a lot into the other pieces. Even in the Gospel of Mark, supposedly the oldest one, they cram a lot of Gnosticism in there. I think they started that. I think they're the first ones who try to put together coherent gospels. It's not that they picked up a coherent gospel and snuck in the Gnosticism. The Gnostics were the ones who first composed coherent gospels roughly in the form that we have. Virgin birth to crucifixion and resurrection. Don't forget the resurrection. They did that first. And when for political reasons they are being lumped together with the Sadducees, most of what you think of as Christianity is probably the so-called Sadducees. Christianity without Jesus of Nazareth having been the Messiah who came and we didn't notice. They tried to sell Jesus to the Sadducees, who are the main, percentage-wise, they are the merchant class, banker class, lawyer class of the whole Romo-Persian Empire. They're the deep state. They're the shadow. They make everything run. They're the brains that make everything run. They believe they should be the ruling class. But in the process of this, Constantine has forced the Gnostics, and Constantine is clearly Gnostic. Mithraism is a Gnostic religion. Constantine postured himself as a man who became God, at least in a whisper campaign. And a lot of that history gets rewritten as time goes by. A lot of what I'm telling you is a conclusion, but I'm telling you it's way easier to justify Gnosticism from the Gospels than it is to justify Trinitarianism. And I think Trinitarianism was, okay, we have to go along with this Christianity crap. We have to admit that Jesus of Nazareth was our Messiah, but this Gnosticism shit has got to go. And they managed to drive it pretty much underground, but not eliminated. That's the short version of the story. That's why I think Muhammad, he did not create a whole new Gnostic sect. I think Muhammad in the East, I'm talking about what goes on in the West. In the East of Constantinopolis, I think what happens is Muhammad takes they're the original Christians. The Gnostic Christians who become what's known as Islam, he leads an exodus of hardcore conservative Christian Gnostics out of this reformed Christian ecclesia, which is trying to establish Trinitarianism. I think Muhammad actually led a secession of original Christians, the eastern half of the Christians, Arab Christians, out of the reformed Catholic Church of the 6th and 7th century. Because an awful lot of intellectuals followed him. All the intellectuals followed him. All of them. And Shia Islam is obviously is a Christian church that converted to Islam. That is Shia Islam. You think the Catholics are bad about turning local gods into saints. You should see what Shia Islam does. But Shia Islam is definitely, and what's the proof? The only references to Muhammad in the West are that he's a leader of a Gnostic cult, charismatic leader of a Gnostic cult. But I'm telling you, that's the Trinitarian version of history. The real version of history is Christianity is a cult started by Gnostics who exist before Christianity. And they're doing this after the destruction of the temple and the final defeat in 132 AD. And then they get lumped because of Constantine joins their cult. And because you need to merge the two worlds of... Yeah, and the Trinitarians are the ones who just balked at the whole idea of the Gnosticism. What's this got to do with Kamala? Well, Kamala's parents are Hindu, right? One of her parents Hindu. They believe man can become God. They believe that there are men walking the earth today who are avatars of God, projections of God in the world, eminences of God in the world. And they see Jesus and they look at Jesus and the story about, and they say, yeah, that's what we would call an avatar. He's an avatar of God who appeared many times in your history. Well, he's done the same thing in our history, and he does this today. And there's the old joke, if Jesus came today, would anybody recognize him? If he actually does come back, is anybody going to notice? And this is exactly when Charlie goes off on this trip that he's Jesus. He gets it through this Hindu, Tibetan Buddhism is Hindu Islam, basically. They go underground in the world of it. Islam tries, actually, even though Muhammad was probably a Gnostic, modern day Islam is ixnay on the Austinism, say. Ostracism, nay. They talk more about Jesus than Christians do. They have many more stories about Jesus than the Christian tradition does. He's big. He's one of the 5 biggies. He's just one. He's the next to the last one. Muhammad's the last one. This is probably the original Christianity that actually gets kind of taken over by this majority of Jews who are proto-Christian anyway, the Sadducees. And there are some Jews who just won't go along with that. Well, Gnosticism keeps rearing its ugly head. It's doing it now. This crap about man became God. There are all these Reformed churches. God became man so that man could become God. They do this around Easter time. That's Gnosticism. They might not know it. Hey, we're going to convert to Gnosticism. They've been told, it's easy to do. I've been doing it. I'm going to continue doing it. They can easily justify Gnosticism from reading the Gospels. Now, a lot of the rest of that material is Trinitarianism trying to assert itself over the Gospels. I think one of the reasons why Paul, who is so objectionable and is the least Christian of all the Christian fathers, he becomes important because he's a non-Gnostic that they can point to and say he's one of the original. I think that's how he becomes this major figure in the ancient church, is because he's the only one they can find who's not Gnostic. He doesn't seem to be Gnostic. He never drops any hints that he's becoming God. He does, I argue, I don't know. I argue that he thinks he's becoming Christ, that Christ is sort of, then that you'll be Christ for a temporary, like Stephen becomes Christ at the moment of his martyrdom. Many are called, but only few. He doesn't know that's what's going to happen. If he becomes Christ, he's not becoming God so much as he calls it the mantle of Christ, putting on the mantle of Christ. He proves himself worthy to bear the mantle of Christ in the world, to enlighten the world. This is his vanity as I see it. He never mentions Jesus. Paul never once ever mentioned Jesus. He just talks about the Christ. And he seems to think that Stephen achieved that status at the moment of his martyrdom. And that Paul is hoping, his last letters, he calls his chains his pearls. He's about to be rewarded with this status. This is a very vain way of looking at it. But when Jesus talks about don't bury these in the backyard, this will rust and corrode and be worth nothing. Store up treasure in heaven. Store up treasure in heaven. So he has a concept of money. He has a concept of wealth. What are you going to do with your treasure in heaven? He does not elaborate. But he has a concept of money. He does have a concept of money. And that money is a purely imaginary concept. It can exist in another dimension. Don't bury these in the backyard. Store these up in heaven like a squirrel storing up nuts for the winter. People like me like to look at that story and say what Jesus is saying is turn away from the cheap and the material. You don't need a Cadillac to be happy. You don't need a $300 pair of gold shoes. If you're looking to buy me a birthday or Christmas present, please don't. Don't spend money on them, but I would love to have, I have seen a 6-pack of Billy Beer. if I had a 6-pack of Billy Beer and a pair of Trump sneakers, I could die a happy man. Don't store up treasure on earth. Store up treasure spiritually. Turn away from greed and lust for the material. How much do you people pay for the poison they serve you? The thing about fruit smoothies is you're not chewing the fruit, so you're not digesting it properly. Half of your digestion takes place in the mouth when you're chewing. If you're swallowing your food, you're doing it wrong. You need to take your time and chew your food until it disappears. And then it goes down your stomach. And if you don't do that, the food just passes through you. And the only thing that gets absorbed that's handy is the sugar. And the fat and the protein that you need pass out. You think you're still hungry. Second thing is no cold drinks, no ice in your drinks, because the temperature shuts down the digestion process. You're not digesting your food properly. The only thing that gets absorbed without being digested is sugar. If you just buy the fruit and just eat the fruit, put all the sugar on it you want. Chew it and chew it. Don't eat too much roughage, because too much roughage goes through you too fast. Chew it and chew it and chew it until you have a mouthful of straw and spit that out. Chew your food until it's gone. No cold drinks. No cold drinks anywhere near a meal. So when you get a fruit smoothie, there's fruit in there, but the only thing you're absorbing from it is the sugar and nothing else. And it's just wreaking havoc in your digestive system. If you eat simple meals like Jesus preaches, little bread, little fish, little olive oil on Sunday, little cheese maybe, a little glass of wine, you'll be good. An onion, eat some greens, right? He preaches bread, protein, greens. And the bread that they were eating is not like Wonder Bread. The bread they're eating is whole grain, unbleached flour, right? It's like European bread. It's a meal. And you don't eat a whole half a loaf at a time. Now, what about Kamala? There was a time when you had to pretend. Joe Biden, to this day, pretends to be Catholic. You had to pretend to be Christian. Obama had to make it pretty loud and clear that he was Christian. He and his wife were Christian. If you consider the church they go to be Christian. Speaking of Gnosticism, speaking of underground, I'm not accusing your average workaday Muslim of being a Gnostic. Far from it. I'm not accusing your average workaday Christian of being a Gnostic. Far from it. But what I'm saying is, speaking of crypto, Islamo, Christio, Judeo, Gnosticism, um, um, the church that the Obamas go to, that one particular African Methodist Episcopal church, and this is not a conspiracy theory, they are Prince Hall Freemasons, right? I think their parents were. Her parents were Prince Hall Freemasons, right? There's Freemasonry, there's Arab Freemasonry, and then there's African Freemasonry, and then there's, Prince Hall Freemasonry is Caribbean. It's the only black, and it's very Gnostic. Very Gnostic. You think the Stanfords and the Folgers are Gnostic. And that church they go to is the branch of the AME church that is affiliated with Prince Hall, right? Babalu I Haitian. Is that the... Okay, Charles, thank you. Number 2, I need information. Are you saying the Obamas belong to that? Or are you saying that is what Prince Hall Freemasonry is? like I'm talking because Marcus Garvey, right? And the other one, what's his name? What's hilarious is they have all forgotten that not Marcus Garvey, the other guy was white. Santo Daime, but but Prince Hall Freemasonry is a lodge, right? The Prince Hall Lodge of Freemasonry. That's what I'm talking about. But yeah, could you be more specific? Now, is this a rumor that they're Santo Daime or they're? But it's no rumor that they're Prince Hall Masons, right? Both of them. Well, she can't be, but he's a Prince Hall Freemason, right? See, there was an actual French Freemason very much into the occult who set about syncretizing French Freemasonry with Caribbean voodoo, the old gods mixed with Christianity. And that evolves into Prince Hall Freemasonry, right? See, the British treated natives differently than the French did. That he got initiated into voodoo and created what became Prince Hall Freemasonry, right? And a very particular branch of magic. Well, the branch of magic that Paschal Beverly Randolph was initiated into. And then he went to Iran and he actually visited the cave where the Zoroastrians keep the flame alive. He went there. He came back with all this knowledge. Madame Blavatsky and her friends tried to cash in on the movement that he had started. And he is the real life Captain Ahab. So, well, while you work on that, I'm pretty sure Obama is Prince Hall Freemason, right? Because that church they go to. Well, there's the I Am movement, Shane. Don't forget the I Am movement. We're going to get to the cult here real soon. If Trump hadn't got shot, if that silly son of a bitch could sit still for 5 minutes, I could get something done on this podcast. Okay, so what's this have to do with Kamala? What about her religion? What about Kamala's religion? MSNBC, how Kamala Harris's Christian faith, but she's married to a Jew. And her parents are Hindu, right? Kamala Harris's parents. Oh, let me do this. Okay, Kamala Harris's parents. Okay, the New Yorker. Kamala Harris should tell her family's story. I probably won't be able to read this. Drove by her childhood home, a yellow, almost excessively pragmatic two-story building in Berkeley that now houses a preschool. This is where Shyamala Gopalan, a cancer researcher and an immigrant from a Brahmin family in India. Let me explain a few things to you. Number one, the black community are anti-Semitic. That doesn't mean every single black person is anti-Semitic, but let me tell you something. The black community is anti-Semitic. Some black people, including Michelle Obama, they get obsessed with their DNA. The ones who don't have any, because they now understand Europeans, white people, are descended from the Neanderthals. We are the inferiors. They are the superiors. Everybody needs to believe this. The Chinese believe this. The Japanese believe this. We are only slightly inferior. We are American. That doesn't mean we're superior to Nihonjin. It just means that we are not as inferior as Gaijin, let alone Kankokujin. But Hindus, let alone Brahmins, believe they are the master race. They are Aryans. They're the real Aryans. And they, in terms of who you think of as an Aryan who thinks he's better than everybody else, that's Hindus and that's Brahmins. They are the real Aryans as far as they are concerned, and they are superior to all the rest of us monkeys. They really believe this. Her father, Donald Harris, is a renowned Marxist economist from Jamaica. And she's married to a Jew. So obviously she's Christian. Don't worry about it. You can't get any more Christian than a Brahmin Hindu raised by a Marxist Jamaican, married to a Jew. You can't get any. How could you get any more Christian than that? Jesus wishes he was this Christian. I don't need to remind you that Jamaica is home to an awful lot of Rastafarians who believe that Haile Selassie, yes, the Haile Selassie from World War II-ish, was the second coming of Jesus Christ, and that Israel of the Bible is actually in Eritrea. I think he's right. I think they did when the Ptolemies are concocting the fraud of the Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Bible. All of that crap I told you about, all that Ptolemaic propaganda, all that pro-Western propaganda about the mythological kingdom of Israel probably is based geographically on Eritrea. And that Jesus, the Jesus I talk about who shows up in Galilee and starts preaching this new doctrine that I'm talking about, that Sadducee, he probably was black. In those days, like the Romans were pretty much colorblind. The Roman world seemed to be somewhat colorblind. We are more obsessed with race than the ancients ever were. If you were foreign, you were foreign. Ethnic doesn't mean race. Ethnic means culture. People of a different culture. The Jews had their own quarter where their own law applied. Sharia law, Jewish Sharia law applied in the Jewish quarter. You understand this, right? That, but don't joke about that with a Rastafarian. So if she's a Christian, now the Haile Selassie is the second coming of Jesus Christ. This is what they believe. And that the original Christ was from Eritrea. And I think they have a point. They're probably right. That's probably is the source of a whole bunch of that material. And as far as Judah is concerned, Judah is where you think it is in Palestina. Israel, the mythological kingdom of Israel, probably is pretty much located in Eritrea. Or that region right there. Okay? You ever had food from there? It's the best food. You talk about cosmopolitan. Addis Ababa, at least at one time, the most cosmopolitan city in the world. The best food. The best food. Renowned Marxist economist from Jamaica who taught at Stanford University for decades. Well, behold. It's been nothing but Stanford economists running the American economy since Carter. Behold what Stanford hath wrought. Doing a bang-up job, that's for sure. Right, and forget about the fact she's supposed to be the border czar. Forget that. Now, Okay, so she tell the story of her mother, a scientist who was just following the science when she got married, who graduated from college at the age of, remember when every American baby boy was getting circumcised? Remember, they were just following the science. Remember that. It's more hygienic. Now, you can't miss what you never had, so I don't know what I'm missing. But apparently, if you know what I mean, apparently, she should talk about how that bright young woman fell in love with a rising black academic. And after the marriage ended, when Kamala was around 7 years old, when Kamala got old enough to start having something to say, that was the end of the marriage. That child opens her mouth one more time. You can kiss my Marxist ass goodbye. You ever have a religious child? Ever have your 5-year-old get religion? There's a child I could name but won't, who went to a Montessori school. Students from Montessori schools have high expectations of others around them. Where's your checklist? Where's your... that episode of Cheers where the old the limo driver and the butler and the valet that gets kicked around by this hotshot young boss. It turns out he's the boy's father. He's working for his son now. Manny, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, here's the thing. The God that you are becoming when you're a Gnostic must be an androgynous God. You must get in touch with your masculine or feminine side. She's childless, supposedly by choice. It's none of our business, but supposedly she chose to be childless. Supposedly, she couldn't even get not even a clinic. You're not reproducing. Oh, I got bad news for you, ma'am. No way will you be reproducing. Supposedly by choice. Well, what does this say about her religion, for example? She raised her daughters in the activist community. So apparently, Marxism doesn't include raising your children that you fathered. Apparently, Christians frown on divorce. How did she become a Christian? I'm trying to figure out the part where she converts to Christianity, because she was raised by people who didn't have a Christian bone in their bodies. There's no such thing as a Christian Marxist. Although I'm sitting here telling you that Marxism is as Christian as it gets. Attending protests in the city, meeting Martin Luther King Jr. Even after her parents separated, Kamala stayed involved in the black community. That went over. Let me tell you how that went over. That went over like a lead balloon. These were my mother's people. You mean like Abigail Folger? Did she come swooping in? Because I'm going to tell you again, she considered herself not only superior to black people, she considered herself superior to white people too. From almost the moment she arrived from India, she chose and was welcomed to and enveloped in the black community. Really, she chose the black community. Because I am not joking. Indian people, I don't care how dark their skin is, you call them black, you will get punched in the mouth. They do not like being equated with Africans in the slightest. They don't like being equated. They consider themselves superior to everybody. But here's the part of the story that's skipping over really fast because it's a lot more complicated than that. The black community is less excited about interracial marriage and children than you are. Believe me. A whole bunch of black people who don't consider Barack Obama to be black. There's a bunch of white people who don't consider Barack Obama to be black. There are a bunch of people who do consider Barack Obama to be black. You can watch that clip. Michelle went on one of those shows where they check your genealogical DNA, which is now going to be owned by Blackstone, if you turned it in. She found out she had 1/8 white or something. Or maybe she had a couple of white ancestors, and she was not happy. She was not happy. So when did she become a Christian? These were my mother's people. I haven't found one single. I don't know how many black people have told me they're voting for Trump, and every black person who ever mentions Kamala Harris's name can't stand her. This is not an official poll. Harris's stump speeches tend to speed past personal mythology. Yeah. There was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day, and that little girl was me. That's all she ever said. This author, this piece, I lived in San Francisco during Harris's time as DA, and this is in the New Yorker, which coincided with a violent gang war in the Mission District and the high-profile murder of a family returning from a barbecue. Harris's actual past as a prosecutor is more complicated. Nothing works better to persuade undecided voters than complicated. She ran as a progressive candidate, sometimes touting her childhood among activists, but hardly followed the progressive consensus while in office. See, this is why she doesn't brag about it. Perhaps most damagingly, as the law professor Laura Bazelon has pointed out in the Times, Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that had been secured through official misconduct that included evidence tampering, false testimony, and suppression of crucial information by prosecutors. Defense attorneys don't become judges. Prosecutors do. You want to be a judge? Your fallback, if you don't win the Senate campaign, your fallback is to become a judge. You're not going to side against the prosecution. Ever. Yeah, she can't get one vote. You notice she didn't show up in San Francisco to announce she was running for president, right? When was the last time she showed her face there? She's perceived as being rootless, not just politically, but also in life. In the 2020 primary, she ran as a populist with the slogan, Kamala Harris for the people. Oh, this was my larger point. Not only that, Walter, not only did she fight to keep an innocent man in prison, but then she fought to get a slap on the wrist for a cop killer who used an AK-47. This is why they should have waited until Halloween to announce that Biden was stepping aside and she was the candidate, because every campaign starts up here, and you're just trying to keep it from crashing completely before Election Day. She has already peaked. She has already peaked. She's not Elizabeth Warren, who can call up years of actual work on consumer protections, nor is she Raphael Warnock with his long history of faith-based political work. She's not a politician who has won broad swing state support. She doesn't have any swing state support. She's way behind Trump in every swing state. Maybe tied in Pennsylvania for some bizarre reason. What is her signature moment? What fight made her? There is to date no clear answers to these questions. You can't. But I'm telling you, she is. Have you seen the movie Being There with Peter Sellers? You must watch it. It is a fable. It is possibly his best movie, because he plays a very low-key character, but he plays it absolutely perfectly. He told the director, I am Chauncey Gardner. Chauncey Gardner is a literal vacuum. There is nothing inside Chauncey. It's a fable about a boy who was raised in an old man's mansion, became the old man's gardener. And the old man dies and he has to leave the house. People read into him whatever they need. It's hard times. There's a recession. There's all this stuff going on. There's a presidential election coming up. They need to read things into him, and they do. And he's not a con artist. He's just a middle-aged man who's still a 4-year-old boy who's just nice to him. He's polite to people. And they ask him, he goes on TV talk shows, and they ask him, when will the recession end? In the garden, as long as the roots are not severed, all will be well in the garden. There will be growth in the spring. He's talking about gardening because he doesn't know anything else. But they need to hear this. He has no past. The CIA are briefing the president. He meets the president, and he just bowls the president over. And because Chauncey doesn't understand that the president's not just another character on television. Everything he knows about the world is through television. He'd never set outside the walls of the estate until he got kicked out by the lawyers. He has all these chance encounters. It's brilliant. But Kamala Harris, and one of the moral lessons, it's a satirical fable, is that's all the president is, like Ronald Reagan. It's not even so much that he's an actor. He just smiles no matter what happens, and that gives people confidence. I think Kamala Harris is somebody looked at that and said, let's try it and see if it works. I think she's literally Chauncey Gardner. She's intelligent and she's doing it on purpose. She is doing what Chauncey Gardner would do to see if it would work. She has no real past. She has no family. So there's a scene where the director of the CIA is briefing the president. Well, because the old man gave him all of his hand-me-down suits. Well, by the 1980s, they're back in style, these 1920 suits. He looks like he owns all the banks in the world. And no one's ever met him before, so they know he must be incredibly powerful. You've seen the movie with Gary Cooper, The £1 Million Note. Have you seen that? It's kind of based on that. It's called Being There. And that's what Kamala Harris is doing on purpose. She's a blank slate. All she does is, the reason she laughs all the time is just so the camera will always see her smiling with her eyes, and that's all you'll ever see. Like, without having to control the media, if the only picture that they ever get is you smiling like Uncle Joe Stalin, that's all. You don't have to own the media. It's just going to happen that way. Cellular automata. This is an experiment to see if Chauncey Gardner could actually win an actual presidential election. But it can't be a long campaign, But here's the New Yorker taking her apart. And they're on her side. Harris has been part of my political life for almost 20 years, basically since I moved to California. I've read her autobiography and watched her debate, and yet I feel as though I couldn't tell you much about her outside of the fact that she keeps being elected to higher and higher office. Is it working? Experiments are being run. Trump is an experiment. He's an experiment that got out of hand. Trump is the COVID-19 of presidents. It's such a good story, it has to be true. That bit that Norm MacDonald used to do about he's been reading history, and there's this country called Germany, this little country smaller than the state of Texas. And in 1914, all of us, they decided they were going to go to war. And as their opponent, they picked the world. They went to war against the world. And that's where I get this whole idea. Norm goes, I know what you're thinking. It must have been over in about 5 minutes. But no, it was actually close. It's Trump. It's Trump. It was Hillary versus Trump. It should have been over in 5 minutes. But no, it was actually close. Biden's big win came down to less than 40,000 votes, right? The more I learn about that Hitler guy, the less I care for him. When he would do the ventriloquist act over the phone, it wasn't just the character. It was the fact that he's doing it over the phone. Because Edgar Bergen would actually bring the dolls, Charlie, to the radio studio to tape his shows. She has no clear political identity. She always seems stuck between places. I'm not calling for Harris to rip up the Biden playbook and run as the new Kamala Harris, but rather to remember that she is asking for the approval of independents and swing voters who might, at this point, know her only as a seemingly do-nothing vice president and border czar. Border czar is not a ceremonial title. She's supposed to fix it. Who got put in as a last-second replacement. That's also how most Democrats see her. You are her biggest fan, and you can't think of one thing she's ever done. Except be a complete and total hypocrite. Just because it was popular at the moment. But but barely. When she's backed in a corner and has to do her job, she will just piss in your face. Trump is going to keep calling her the border czar, and just as people on the right and left alike mock Nikki Haley's given name of Nimrata when Haley ran in the Republican primary, critics of Harris will bring up Harris's Marxist immigrant parents, especially if it seems as though she's avoiding talking about them. Yeah, you're right. My theory is she is playing a role. She's playing the role of Chauncey Gardner. And I think she's doing it on purpose. And with a lot of, she has a staff that coaches her and helps her achieve this goal. I don't think she's brainwashed. I think this is what she has chosen to do. And I don't think it's a coincidence who her parents were. Well, let me tell you who cares about the border, and that's the black community. White people aren't being replaced, but black people are. They're being replaced physically. All those migrants coming into the country are being bussed into black neighborhoods. by people who are expecting those people to be grateful. It's pure politics. They're not replacing white people. They're replacing black people. And black people notice. They're the population that's shrinking percentage-wise in America. And they know it. Now let's get back to her Christianity. Harris embodies our nation's founding ideal of religious freedom and models a Christian commitment to religious pluralism. Oh, I thought she was a Christian. Let's see. What is her religion? Biography.com. Here it is, straight from the horse's mouth. I got your email, Kevin, and haven't had time to read it. Your emails are vastly helpful. If I had time to read it, you would have gotten a reply. I need a break. We all need a break. But give me till... Look how white she is in this picture. Look how white she is in this picture. Her mother is Brahmin. Her father is African Jamaican. And look how white she is in this picture. She is whiter than her pearls. Look at this picture up close on my monitor. On my monitor. And once again, you'll notice there's no yellow in the... All of the saturation of the yellow has been completely and entirely washed out. Look how white she is in this picture. She was real black in the media until she ran for president and she instantly turned white. And I'm talking about Photoshop artists. I'm not talking about her. Well, she's whiter than my socks, but that's politically and culturally and ideologically. She is lily white. She is Abigail Folger. She pretends to be liberal. On Sundays, my mother would dress my sister Maya and me in our Sunday best and send us off to the 23rd Avenue Church of God. She's Church of God? You talk about crazy Christian cults. And some of my best friends belong to the Church of God. Holiness Pentecostal Christian denomination. Yeah, because Pentecostalism, Assembly of God, is a gateway drug to Church of God. Bless their solid gold hearts. I'm just saying, if you're going to go around campaigning against Christian loonies, you were raised, yeah, I'm Christian. In fact, I was raised in the Church of God. R.G. Sperling and his father Richard Sperling rejected some of the views of the Baptists in his area as not being in accord with the New Testament. It's as if the Taliban, the Inquisition purging the Taliban because they're soft on sin. That's the Church of God. They are the literal holy rollers, right? Because what was Oral Roberts? Oral Roberts he's not Church of God. He's Pentecostal holiness. Church of God, do they pass around the snakes? I think that's the big difference. We didn't pass around snakes. You don't tempt God. You do not tempt God. The Church of God will tempt God, right? Jesus said, the devil said to Jesus, well, jump off this tower. God has sent his angels to save you. And Jesus said, do not tempt God. God will save you, but you don't tempt God like that. But the Church of God, they pass the snakes around. That's Oral Roberts, right? The snake handlers, that's Church of God. And of course, they get this from voodoo. A lot of their Pentecostalism comes from voodoo. Yeah, yeah, that's Church of God. Her mother was Hindu and her father was Church of God. I told you her mother was Hindu. She was not a Christian, and her mother's Hindu. She went to a Black Baptist church and a Hindu temple, USA Today reported. But 23rd Avenue Church of God in Oakland, California. She took her oath of office on her family Bible. Did she kiss it like Harry Truman? What was that all about? He made a big deal. He grabbed it out of the Chief Justice's hands and kissed it. What's that supposed to mean? The Third Baptist Church of San Francisco. I have to know. Okay, there's First Baptist. I can see Second Baptist Church, but the Third Baptist Church of San Francisco. A spiritual person and quintessential scholar. She is an atheist who pretends to go to church. You watch Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, right? He's supposed to appoint a bishop or recommend appointment of a bishop. A modernist is an atheist. Well, like they point out in the episode, a bishop is he's not a spiritual supervisor. He's the business overseer of the church. He oversees the business of the church. That's why he's called an episcopos. He oversees the business of the monastery. He oversees the money. He's the publican. The Third Baptist Church of San Francisco is an American Baptist church founded in 1852, located in the Western Addition, San Francisco's oldest African American church. Since 1976, Reverend Amos C. Brown has been the pastor. What is he, 120? Born 1941, he's 83 years old. President of the San Francisco branch of the NAACP. Brown was one of only 8 students who took the only college class ever taught by Martin Luther King Jr. He serves on the board of the California Reparations Task Force. So she didn't go to church. She went to Patrice Lumumba University. She went to a black crypto-Muslim, crypto-Gnostic, Marxist indoctrination school. Let's get one thing clear. I know some Baptists. There's nothing Baptist about anything I just read you in that paragraph. I'm not saying they're evil or satanic or that they're not true Christians. What I'm saying is that has nothing to do with the Baptist Church. Nothing. None of that. Whether it should or not is not my point. Organized the first NAACP Youth Council. Attended their convention in '56 at the invitation of Medgar Evers, who drove Brown there personally. That's not church. Jerry Falwell's church is not church. Politics and church don't mix, right? Remember? This is not a Christian church. This is a crypto Masonic. My point about Prince Hall Freemasonry is not that it's Muslim, it's that it's Freemasonry. Oh, I will see that, Kevin. I will check that right now while I am thinking of it. So obviously I lied. No, I haven't read it, but I did see it. I haven't got there yet. Yeah, they came through. I can get the pictures for sure. I just haven't had a chance to. Yeah, I saw it. I saw this much. I just haven't downloaded the pictures and read them yet. Two bystanders wounded by stray bullets. Cap's bloody week in the Bronx. There's more about Brooklyn. So anyway, he attended Morehouse College, then Crozer Theological Seminary. Was a Baptist seminary located in Upland, Pennsylvania, which is that's a long way from Pittsburgh. It's in the far southeast corner of Pennsylvania. You can piss on West Virginia from Upland, Pennsylvania. Martin Luther King Jr. was a student there, being elected student body president. Merged with Rochester Theological Seminary, forming the Colgate Rochester Crozer Divinity School in Rochester, New York. This podcast writes itself. The Bible is the book that reads itself. The Christian Bible has instructions for how to read it. It's very interesting. It was compiled by the greatest intellectual minds that the Romans could put their hands on. All slaves. You had to have a patron. Ask John about the Society of Oculists in Rochester, New York. He'll tell you all about it. Speaking of synthetic rubies and testing lenses, this podcast writes itself. Do you see what I mean now? Once you see it, then you see it everywhere. It's true. Once you see it everywhere. The one that flipped my lid was Oberlin College. I haven't even begun to talk about Oberlin College. Read up on the history of Oberlin College and then start noticing just exactly who pops up with connections to Oberlin College. Remember, Ohio, Indiana were filled with weird cults. New Harmony, Indiana, where I grew up, you could see it up on the bluffs. You could see the seminary. It's huge. It was the biggest building in the Midwest for 100 years. It was huge. Beautiful campus. Didn't last long, but it was this cult. It was a free love Christian cult. The hippies invented nothing. But this idea that Charles Manson thinking that basically he was told by people, you're an avatar of Jesus Christ, which the secret teachings of Scientology about the operating thetan, they would phrase it as Jesus is an operating thetan and you are one of the avatars he operates, kind of thing. You're not becoming a god like same as Jehovah but you're becoming a thetan, an archangel. That's how they would kind of justify some of that. Faced criticism from some black ministers for his support of same-sex marriage. Welcome to the black community. There is no support for same-sex marriage in the black community. Not outside of California. You're going to have to pick me up and drive me to a place where they approve of homosexuality and the black people who approve of homosexuality. Supports legalization of marijuana. Called for reparations. Operation Crossroads Africa. Spent over 2 months in Africa. Well, I just got through telling you that Christianity is infested with Gnostics the way Trump's hairpiece is infested with shrapnel and the cooties he picked up from the whore he paid off. Don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do? Doesn't mean he did anything, but when you pay the blackmail instead of calling the FBI, take a page from David Letterman's book. David Letterman would win a presidential election in his sleep. I giggle like a hyena, and I don't hold a candle to her. That's all. Her only response to every question is to laugh inappropriately. But she, instead of answering the question, just the only picture they have is her smiling. Look how simple it is. Look how simple it is. A dog will lick his butt but won't eat a pickle. That's my answer for everything. Oh, this is not the fake book feed. I want to see this. Telekinesis? Telekinephews. Let's get high and deny Christ. Brilliant, brilliant. Greta Thunberg, 18 years old, not a scientist, reads from a script, gets 24/7 media coverage. Dr. Judith Curry, climatologist, published over 140 scientific books, says it's all a hoax, gets no media coverage. Yeah, I'm posting a lot of these. Current mood, a lot of grouchy cats and people. Oh, Plato's theory and the Pilgrim's reality. Here's a guy who gets it and is lying to you about it. This is where I get off. This guy is pointing out the Platonism in the Mayflower Compact and the Mayflower, how they tried to live. They were early Christian communist anarchists, but they didn't get it from Plato. They got it from the Bible. Christianity is communist. They invented communism. Sorry. But I'm telling you, those were the Gnostics, and then the church gets taken over by more or less taken over by the Trinitarians. Mother's Day is the day when the least amount of crime is committed in the U.S., and that says a lot for how many moms are out there committing crimes. Oh yeah, the hurricane that hit the New Jersey shore and shattered all those blades, and you can't go swimming because it cut you to pieces. It's worse than sharks. Far worse than sharks. The windmills they built are worse than sharks. Worse than an infestation of sharks. I have swum with a school of hammerhead sharks. Once. I didn't swim with them. I was swimming over them. They'll ignore you, but I got cut. I was body surfing down at Venice where there's pumice in the pumice rocks, and I got cut and didn't realize it, and there was blood. And somebody raised me up out of the water for a second. It was a hammerhead bumping into me to see if I felt like something chewable. And I got the hell out of the water. But if you look on drone footage, you're out there swimming with hammerheads all the time. They're waiting. They're like pigeons. Hammerhead sharks are the pigeons of the ocean. They're waiting for crumbs to drop out of your pocket. But if you confuse them, they might get confused and think that you might be something edible. And then they taste you and they find out how yummy you are. You've seen the dogs that get jealous when one dog gets a treat. Hammerheads, they're like cottonmouth snakes. They swarm you. They swarm you like army ants. They swarm you like piranhas. Hammerheads are the piranhas of the sea. But you've swum with You've swum with hundreds, and they swim in shoals. They swim in schools. They swim in swarms. Here's the thing about this fake meme about Netflix lost 6 million subscribers when news broke that the president of Netflix donated to Harris's campaign. This is false. Netflix no longer releases their subscriber data publicly. Their subscriber numbers. This is now a secret. That's what that whole meme is about. That's why it hasn't been debunked. Because the truth is, nobody knows how many subscribers Netflix has. Is this true? AstraZeneca was withdrawn after admitting blood clots. Pfizer is settling cancer cases out of court. And former CNN anchors are taking ivermectin. Who are they talking about? Do you know? Who's taking ivermectin? Morgue employee cremated by mistake while taking a nap. I guess 2 people got fired that day. Why would you take a nap in the thing? But this sounds like it was an accident. It was an accident. There's been an accident. What is that? It's not a Columbo. The person who caused the accident runs out in the hallway and screams, "There's been an accident." That's what Jeffrey McDonald told base police when he called the MPs. He called them and said, some people have been stabbed and I'm in a lot of pain. I've always wondered why lemonade is made from artificial flavors, but furniture polish is made from real lemons. The 2024 Olympics should take place in Jacksonville or Chicago or a lot of other places. The 2024 Olympics should take place in Chicago, so the athletes have to figure out which gunshot is the starting pistol. Remember how unlikable she was in 2020? Remember when Kamala Harris was just one of Montel Williams' side chicks? Do you know he had a double mastectomy? He was diagnosed with breast cancer when he was in the Marine Corps and they did a double mastectomy. I'm not saying they don't have good doctors in the Marine Corps. What I'm saying is, did you get a second opinion? Men can get breast cancer, especially when you hit menopause. Men do have a cycle. It's 35 days long, and you do hit menopause. But if you don't do a quick internet search, it's pretty interesting. I just now read that. I'm a big fan of these. The ones that tell you to turn it upside down and see another picture. I love practical jokes. And some of them are pretty good. Because the good ones, they'll feed you a lot of gold dust and then they'll... Suspicious persons common, but police testimony raises new questions. This was what I wanted to talk about as well. After Pennsylvania police leaders revealed there were at least 2 other suspicious individuals besides would-be assassin crooks, experts tell Fox News that reports of suspicious or unusual people at Secret Service events are common. Just because you can see... Now, you've seen the picture of the 3 tramps in Dealey Plaza that day. They look an awful lot alike. An awful lot like not just 3 obscure CIA guys, but 3 really top CIA guys. But you haven't seen the picture of Tony Poe at Dealey Plaza that day. He's not standing with those guys. Just because you saw Everett Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis and Tony Poe at Trump's rally, that doesn't mean that has anything to do. It's just a random coincidence that Thomas Crooks, about whom the FBI knows nothing, was connected to the 3 other suspicious people. Don't go jumping to conclusions. Well, I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I'm going to perform an investigation as soon as I get off of here. The gunman is believed to have acted alone. Not proven, believed. And he was believed to have acted alone within hours. Before dawn, Sunday morning, FBI had concluded that he acted alone. Every single presidential assassin has acted alone. Even Squeaky Fromm, who was not just a fringe member of the Manson family, but the second member of the Manson family. First, it was the first member of the Manson family, supposedly, is Mary Brunner, and the second one is Squeaky Fromm. Supposedly. Card-carrying member number 2 supposedly acted alone in the attempted shooting of Gerald Ford. Has anybody seen Squeaky? There she is. She's on TV, shooting President Ford. Trump shooter was not only a suspicious person at Butler rally. And what did you do about them exactly? I'll tell you what I would like to do. I just said don't go burying gold in the backyard, and I'm getting ads for buying gold. You have no privacy and you have no secrets. The president has no privacy and has no secrets. There's no privacy, there are no secrets. Yeah, I know Hillary deleted 23,000 emails, but somebody kept a copy. Believe me, there are copies. Remember, everybody was griping. The FBI raided Lolita Island and seized all those tapes and all those files and everything. Nothing happened. Oh, I don't know. I think something's happening. I think something's happening. Sniper group chat? Whistleblower told Josh Hawley that an officer was assigned to monitor the roof, but he left their post because it was too hot. Less than 20 minutes afterward, Crooks fired a volley shot. But they saw him using the rangefinder and all that stuff 30 minutes before he took the shot. No information he possessed a weapon, but information he was carrying a backpack. There's no information I'm carrying a weapon, but they're knocking on the door now. I told him, wait, you have to take a number. If you hear about something I said on social media, take a number, and the next available representative will take your search warrant and your arrest warrant as soon in the next available. Okay, let me check into that. I'll get off here in a minute. Sexist social media posts from Kamala Harris's new senior campaign advisor resurface. Know her place. Kamal Marshall, who was hired by the Harris campaign earlier this week, issued an apology in 2020 for his offensive posts and has reportedly undertaken a digital purge in recent days. Even though I like a power woman, I need her to know her place. Well, if liking a power woman and needing her to know her place are wrong, then I don't want to be right. Give me a minute. If loving a power woman and needing her to know her place are wrong, then by gum, I don't want to be right. I'm Professor Thomas Henry Horan, asking you to please stay plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
He reads everything.